The divorce case of Moureen Sinclair versus Dr. Wesfore Sinclair. Orders. In light of the foregoing findings, I make the following orders. So the judge is making the order. The parties are each entitled to a 50% share in the family home registered at volume 1082, folio 985 of the Register Book of Titles and situated in Cherry Gardens, St. Andrew. The defendant, Mr. Sinclair, is solely responsible for all outstanding mortgages endorsed on the title of the family home registered at volume 1082, folio 985 of the Register Book of Titles and situated in Cherry Gardens, St. Andrew. The claimant, Mrs. Sinclair, is at liberty to purchase the defendant's share in the family home. Should this option to purchase the defendant's share in the family home be exercised, the claimant is to serve notice on the defendant. That means Mrs. Sinclair is to serve notice on Dr. Sinclair within 60 days of the date hereof that she intends to exercise this option. Thereafter, the property is to be valued by a reputable valuator agreed upon by the parties. If the parties are unable to agree on a valuator within 90 days of the date hereof, either party may apply to the Registrar of the Supreme Court to appoint a valuator within 120 days of the date thereof. If the claimant, Mrs. Sinclair, is unable to exercise the option to purchase Dr. Sinclair's share in the family home, then the property is to be sold on the open market. Mrs. Sinclair's attorney at law is to have the carriage of sale. The outstanding mortgage is to be repaid from the value of Dr. Sinclair's share in the family home. Dr. Sinclair is ordered to transfer 20% of his shares in the company Radiology West to Mrs. Sinclair. Dr. Sinclair is ordered to transfer 15% of his shares in the company Pines Imaging Center Limited to Mrs. Sinclair. The defendant, that's Dr. Sinclair, is at liberty to purchase the shares of Mrs. Sinclair in Radiology West and Pine Imaging Center Limited at full market value. If Dr. Sinclair chooses to exercise this option, he is to serve notice of his intention on Mrs. Sinclair within 60 days of the date hereof. Thereafter, the claimant, Mrs. Sinclair's shares in the companies are to be valued by a reputable valuator agreed on by the parties within 90 days of the date hereof. If the parties are unable to agree on a valuator, either party may apply to the Registrar of the Supreme Court to appoint a valuator within 20 days of the date hereof. If Dr. Sinclair fails to exercise the option to purchase Mrs. Sinclair's shares in the companies, Dr. Sinclair is at liberty to sell the said shares on the open market by private treaty or by public auction. The Registrar of the Supreme Court is empowered to sign any document where the parties fail to do so in order to give effect to orders 1, 2, XVII is what, 12. The claimant is entitled to 100% interest in the 2013 Toyota Prado. That's Mrs. Sinclair. Mrs. Sinclair has no interest in the 2016 Mercedes-Benz. Mrs. Sinclair has no interest in the Suzuki Vitara. Dr. Sinclair is ordered to pay spousal maintenance in the sum of $350,000 per month to Mrs. Sinclair for the next 3 years with effect from the 30th of June 2021. Dr. Sinclair is ordered to continue to pay insurance premiums for the insurance coverage that he has in place for Mrs. Sinclair for the next 3 years. The defendant, as Dr. Sinclair, is ordered to continue to pay the insurance premiums for the insurance coverage that he has in place for Mrs. Sinclair for the next 3 years. Dr. Sinclair is ordered to pay half of the claimant's cost, Mrs. Sinclair's cost. Cost to be agreed or taxed. Orders to be prepared, filed and served by Mrs. Sinclair's attorney at law.